Hey guys, my name is Jay Sini. Welcome to the very first episode of The Guitar Channel, where we talk about everything guitars. Okay, so today we're talking about how to dial in a great tone. So there's so many things which come into play when you're trying to dial in a great tone. There's no such thing as the perfect tone. There's many different tones that you can use which can be defined as a great tone. Of course, it all depends on the song. So tip number one in dialing in a great guitar tone is working out what your genre is and what the song is that you're playing. So I know a lot of different guitarists that will dial in a particular tone that works for one song and one song alone, and they'll dial in a new tone for each song. This is really easy to do on things like the Axe effects, which have hundreds of amps in them. Obviously, not everyone has this luxury, so if you don't have this luxury, it's important to kind of get a general sound that's going to work for a number of songs that are within the genre. So what you can do is have a listen to a few other artists that are in the genre that you really aspire to be like and you think have great tone. Have a listen to what their tone is. Maybe look up some of the settings that they have on the amps, what amps they're using, and see if you can match that tone or very closely, and that'll kind of give you a good working idea of how to fit within the genre. Now, tip number two, which is in contrast from the very first one, don't dial in from other people's sounds. Okay, so this can be used as a great starting point. However, this isn't the be-all and end-all. You want to be using the most powerful tool that you have, and that's your own ears. So definitely look up some settings for people, see how they sound, but you can always tweak things. Okay, so don't be limited to just their sounds. Make sure you're doing what sounds good to your ears as well. So tip number three is EQ. Now this is a very powerful tool in creating your guitar tone, probably the most important out of all of these four things on the list. So basically on an amp you have bass, mids, and treble. Some amps will have the functions of depth or resonance and also presence. Now these are just controls at either end of the spectrum which can help to shape your tone a little bit more, but most amps will have bass, mid, and treble. So these are very broad, so whatever you do on the bass knob or the middle knob is going to affect a lot of different frequencies in that particular region. So often, a lot of times, people will dial in way too much bass and way too much treble, especially when you're playing just by yourself and you're not with a band. Now this can sound great when it's not with a band, however it can become quite a bit of an issue when you start playing with a band. Things can get quite messy if you dial in too much bass, for example, because once you dial in too much bass you're competing with the bass guitarist and all of the frequencies that he's using. So often it's really good a lot of times to make sure that you're cutting out some of those lower frequencies to give the bass guitar room. It will also help to clean up your tone, make it sound a bit tighter. So a lot of the time people will struggle with trying to hear their guitar in the context of a band, and this is because they've dialed out all of their mid-range. A lot of people will do this, especially beginner guitarists. Things sound great in their bedroom with a lot of bass and a lot of treble, and they turn the mids right down. However, when you get to the band, your guitar tone will disappear completely and you'll have a really hard time trying to hear your guitar. So obviously the fix for this is to turn up those mids. You'd be surprised how much you will actually need them in your guitar tone to create a really thick and full sound. When you're dialing in your EQ, you'll also want to take into consideration what guitar you're playing. You might have set up some great sounds for your humbucker guitar. Say you have a Les Paul, you have some great tones set up for the humbucker. However, when you jump onto a Strat, those same EQ settings might not quite work for that guitar, so it's really important to take that into account when you're tuning in your EQ. And tip number four, which is incredibly important also, make sure that you are mixing your guitar tones at performance volume. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would you mix a performance volume where you can just mix, a bit quieter and not have it too loud? Well, the reason for that is because of the Fletcher-Munson curve. Now I'm going to leave a link in the description for some reading about Fletcher-Munson curve and how it works. But basically, your guitar tone is going to sound different based on the volume to your ears. So if you have it really quiet, you'll find that you'll often need to dial in a lot more bass and a lot more treble into your guitar tone to get the sound that you're after. However, when you turn it up to performance volume, you'll find sometimes that the bass and the treble are way too overpowering and you'll need to dial that back. So this is because of the Fletcher-Munson curve. So there is some reading that I'll put in and you guys can have a look at. So make sure you're dialing in at performance volume. So there you go guys, we have 4 tips on how to dial in a great guitar tone. Make sure you like the video and subscribe. We're going to be bringing out lots of great content related to guitars, how to play different chords, how to play different licks, dialing in great tone, how to get more work as a session player, lots of different videos. So make sure you do like the video and subscribe and stay tuned for more great content. My name is Jay Sini and this is the Guitar Channel.